This is Bill Brady doing another recording for the Kingship course. This particular recording is on ruling the nations with the rod of iron. This is one of the promises that is given to overcomers. And I've already, this is part 2 on that. You're probably going to want to listen to part 1 if you haven't listened to it before this. But ruling the nations with the rod of iron, part 2. First mention of rod of iron is found in Psalm 2. This is Psalm 2 in the New King James Version. And down here in verse 9, you shall break them with a rod of iron, you shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. In my previous teaching on this, I proclaimed and explained that ruling the nations with a rod of iron is something that Jesus does at a certain time, but it's also something that we will do with him at that same certain time. So today we're going to take a look at the first mention here. I'm just going to read you Psalm 2. Why do the nations, as a beginning, we'll read Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, that's his Christ, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king, my Christ, on my holy hill of Zion, on my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are those who put their trust in him. There are 4 paragraphs to this psalm. The psalm is a poem, so we probably could call these stanzas. The first paragraph has to do with the nations and the Lord's response, well, the nations. And then the next one has to do with what God's response is to the nations. He's in the heavens and he laughs at them in derision, says, you're doing what? You want to do what? You got to be kidding. And then the fourth one is the Son. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. Today I've begotten you. So this is Jesus speaking about his sonship, but it's also us, those who have been given sonship, functional sonship, not just being born as a son, but functional sonship taught by a father to do the works that the Father's been doing. And then the last one is exhortation to the kings and judges of the earth. So let's take a look at it again. Why do the nations rage? Well, the nations are the Gentiles. These are not countries like US, Canada, Great Britain, France. These are nations, Gentiles, people who are not Israelites. Why do the nations rage? They're angry, and the people plot a vain thing. They're in a plot. They're all part of a plot. A vain thing means it's useless. It's not going to happen. The kings of the earth set themselves. So the kings of the earth are all the rulers of the earth. In some cases, even believers that really are having their puppet strings pulled by the fallen angels. So you need to understand that we've got rulers on the earth, but above them in the second heaven, there are fallen angels that are pulling their strings, getting them to do what they want to do. And then the rulers that are on the earth all have demons in them that are all subservient to the fallen angels. The fallen angels are like the officers in the army, and the demons are like the enlisted men and sergeants that are not officers that take orders from the officers. So the kings of the earth have the demons within them, driving them to do things, but they also have the fallen angels over above them, pulling their puppet strings to get them to do. And we know that everyone who's not a believer, that's actually not just a believer, but actually has done the work to get free from the world and all this other stuff I just mentioned, the demons and the fallen angels, is, even though they're a believer, they're still flowing downstream with the world, going in the world's direction rather than flowing upstream against the current. So the nations are angry with God. The people are plotting a thing that's not going to happen. The kings of the earth set themselves, so they're all together in this conspiracy, and the rulers take counsel together. Kings and rulers are pretty much the same thing, though rulers might be a little higher. But anyway, they're all talking with each other. How can we do this? They take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. So against the Lord, Yahweh, and against his anointed, who is Jesus the Christ, but also us, those of us who are kings. And then here's what they say: let us break their bonds in peace. Picture them just breaking the ropes off that are restraining them and keeping them from doing what they want to do and just going in their immorality and everything in the direction they want to do. They want to get rid of all restraint from just doing what they want to do, and cast away their cords from us. So break them off and cast them away. We're free. We're free. We can do whatever we want to now. Okay, he who sits in the heavens shall laugh. God just laughs at it. The Lord shall hold them in derision. That's mocking. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath. He's angry with this, not just anger, but this stronger anger to wrath, and distress them. So he speaks to them and distresses them as deep pleasure. He says, regardless of what you've been talking about and what you want, I have put my Christ on my holy hill of Zion. I've set him there. I've set him means he's set him down. He's put him in office, put him in place. And remember, again, this is not just Jesus as the Christ, but it's also us as kings. So God says, well, that's really interesting what you've been saying and doing, but this is what I've done. And then Jesus as the Son, and those of us who are functioning in sonship, which means Son of God, Son of Man, I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my Son. Today I've begotten you. Okay, so he knows he's the Son, and so do we. I'm a son. I'm a functional son. I'm not just one that's been born to be a son. I'm a functional son. And he has a promise from the Lord saying, ask of me and I will give you the nations for your inheritance and the ends of the earth for your possession. So Jesus has died, and his inheritance is the nations, not Canada, England, France, Wales, or anything else, or some nation in Africa or Asia. No nation in that sense. It's the Gentiles, all the Gentiles in their various family lines are Jesus's inheritance and his possession. And not just the people, but also the earth is his possession. And then the other part that the promise that's been given to him, and this is the part that we see from Revelation of Jesus Christ, chapter where I quoted this from, you shall break them with a rod of iron. Wham! You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Well, a potter's vessel is a piece of clay that's been fired, and now it's pottery, right? If you dash that down, what do you have? A whole lot of shards, little pieces of pottery, right? Little small pieces of pottery that just are absolutely useless. I mean, all you can do is do what Job did, that we scraped his boils. That's all they're good for. So this whole conspiracy that is against the Lord, Yahweh, and his Christ, which is Jesus and us as kings, the time is going to come that we and Jesus together are going to break them with a rod of iron and dash them like pieces like a potter's vessel. The fourth stanza, now therefore be wise, O king. So in light of what the real truth about this is, which is not the truth of what the people and the nations and the kings of the earth and the rulers have been saying and counseling and gathering together in their conspiracy, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. This is the real truth we just talked about in the second stanza and the third stanza. This is the truth. The day is going to come when God's going to say, that's it, that tears it. And he is going to have his Christ, which is both Jesus and us, do the work of breaking them with a rod of iron and dashing them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Not the people, I don't think. I think it's the conspiracy that gets broken up. Though there is going to be judgment, and unrepentant conspirators are going to be judged to the second death, which is the lake of fire. There's a point at which God clears the entire battlefield. You picture the battlefield. There's all this going on the earth, and there's all this stuff going on unseen up in the second heaven. all that's going on in a conspiracy against God. But at some point, God's going to clear out all the resistance in the second heaven, every bit of it. That the ecclesia has a job to do that, and then the kings have a job to do this judgment. And at the certain time when the 1,000 years is about to start, God just clears the battlefield off. Everybody that's fighting against him is dead, being physically dead, and then cast into the lake of fire. And the devil and all his angels are cast into the bottomless pit, and the battlefield is completely empty of anybody but the victors, is the way I see it. And like I said, the ecclesia does the work of judging falling angels and clearing them out and casting them into Tartarus, which is the pit. And the kings do the work of judging the earth with the rod of iron. Wham, remember, like wham, wham, wham. And so in light of this truth, now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord, serve Yahweh with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. Perish is not just death, at least in the New Testament anyway. Perish is cast into the lake of fire. When you perish in the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all those who put their trust in him. So all this is about what the conspirators against God say and do, and what God has to say about it, and what God has declared to the Son, so that the Son can then get his inheritance of the nations, of the Gentiles rather, and get his possession of the earth, and the king, which is the corporate king, which is Jesus and the kings, break them with a rod of iron. Then kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. And again, perish, like I said, is dying physical death. And in its fullness, it's also being cast in the lake of fire, which I do not personally know. It's not just personal. From Scripture, I see it as being not eternal damnation, but it is not pleasant, and it certainly is not plan A. It's like plan C or something, or D. It's not the fastest way to God, but it does eventually get you to the place where you are part of his people. But it is the long, hard, unpleasant way, as opposed to the easiest way, which is also long enough in and of itself and hard enough, also difficult. But at the very end of all this, the last sentence, blessed are those who put their trust in him, Yahweh, or maybe the Son, put their trust in the Son. Okay, so we've taken a look at the first mention of ruling the nations with a rod of iron, and I've given you basic background to that and repeated it several times, so you should be able to get that. Don't let the lake of fire not being eternal damnation trigger you, please. If that's something that's brand new to you, and it does set you off into triggering, which means maybe even just wanting to run away from what I'm telling you, because you've been taught something else previously. Put that away for later and ask about it, though. Let God tell you other than what you've been taught if he wants to. Little seed here from me. Okay, so part 2 on ruling the nations with a rod of iron.